And so it's almost like under our worst thinking, we start believing every thought that we have about our partner or about our team. And we believe that what we're thinking about our partner is true. And all of a sudden, the lovely person that we're with turns into this monster. Right. In a millisecond, right? Like he was this lovely person before, this thought entered your mind, and now he's the same person, but he sometimes physically looks the same. I mean, different, right? So it's so nice to know that at any time you really can shift and see the humanity of this person, this human being in front of you. I don't know if we have moms here, right? There are mothers in the room. Okay. So have you ever been really upset with your children, right? Especially if they were little, and then they say something that's so funny that you're trying to still be upset, but now it's funny. Have you experienced that? Mm-hmm. And you're trying to be like still upset, but you kind of laugh, right? Because it's like, it's funny, this kid's funny. Do you have an example?
It's gone beyond whatever might have been the reason of upset, and the length of time spent on that upset is just gone beyond that, and it's just not funny anymore. I mean, it's not, there's no reason for anger on that subject anymore. It's, you've drilled it out. So, you know, and yeah, and they say something that, come on, just let it go. Something which they would say, yes, it's saying, just let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get to enjoy your precious kid again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You take you yourself go too far.
Yes.
At times. Yeah. You don't know when to stop.
Yeah. So we all do that, right? But it's nice to know that you can be very upset at a kid or whomever, and then at any time, you can have a change of heart.
Just to understand that, my problem in relationships is I don't know which one of those is true. I don't know if I'm making up the good version or making up the bad version. And I came to like kind of like a switch between, I'm single by the way.
So this is self-talk.
No, this is why. But yeah, so like obviously with a child it's simple, you know, it's like you can say, you know, it's your child, you know that person with family members and stuff. But in relationships with people you don't know very well, how do you know which one? You're making it all up really, but you know, how do you know?
Yeah, I wanna kind of say something, Don DC gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. This is a guy who's a mentor of mine, and I had this very question, and I was really caught up about a relationship I had at work. And I was saying to Don, I remember I phoned him up and I was kind of really up in my head, and I said, you know, but how do I know which one's right? You know, sometimes I'm kind of chilled out and relaxed, and you know, this person doesn't seem so bad, and you know, it's okay, and I can see positives. It's not perfect, but you know, it's okay. And then sometimes, quite often, I'm really like, you know, this is terrible. I'm really caught out. I just, you know, I feel like I just want to pack it all in, and it looked really real, and Don was kind of talking to me, and we were talking for a little bit, and I was going, yeah, but Don, the thing that kept coming back is, and I don't know, I said something, and he goes, what's holding you back, or something like that, and I said, well, what if it's my wisdom? What if it's this, like, my gut instinct, this is just something that's the right thing that is telling me that this person is so annoying, that's what I need to listen to. And Don asked me a question which kind of just stopped me in my tracks, and he said, has your wisdom, or you can change wisdom to gut instinct, or you know, whatever word fits for you, he said, has your wisdom ever shown up accompanied by a bad feeling? And my mind just stopped, and I was like, and the funny thing was, Don kept talking for another 15 minutes, I didn't hear anything else that he said, right, because I was just, that was it, I was done. And ever since then, I've been always looking for an exception, and it's not shown up for me. And that was kind of revolutionary for me, because so many times, you know, I get because it's deceptive, right? Like you get a really strong good feeling, or you get a really strong bad feeling, and they both look like they're telling us about the person we're in a relationship with. And when Don said that to me, it was just like, oh my God, so many times when I've been in that situation, that has never been, you know, the best way to react. That's not been my gut or my wisdom. And in fact, if it has been, if something's said to me like, oh, stay away from this person, it's never accompanied by all of this negativity. It's just like a knowing. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to stay away from that person. And so all of that other stuff is just, you know, telling us, maybe we're not seeing this so clearly right now. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really makes sense that, you know, if your wisdom was telling you something like to stay away from that person, there would be a clarity with that. If you wouldn't be wondering if it's true, if it's not true, you know, it would be clear. So, yeah.
And I think, again, another great rule of thumb for me is, if I'm asking myself, if I'm not sure, well, whatever I'm thinking in that moment, you know, leave it alone. And for us, coming back to the subject of what we're talking about, that's when the lightness, the fun, the ease comes back in relationships. Because it's not fun to stay in that place, right? And again, you know, those of you who've got children, we see this in children all the time. They can have crazy tantrums. You just leave them alone. And they realise intuitively, they might not verbalise it in this way, but they realise intuitively, it's not really fun to hang around, like getting really upset, and then they're off and playing again. And the funny thing is, someone said to me years ago that, you know, if we all act like children do, we'd all be put in a mental asylum. Yet children have far better mental health than we do as adults.
No, it's perfect. Thank you.
There's something to know about where behavior comes from. There's something to know about that. I've worked in jails before, and I work with people that have murdered people and molested children. And there are some people that I think they do really well contained in jail. Okay? So I think that's a good place for them because it holds them in a safe space. But it's really nice to understand when somebody behaves in a certain way. Where is that coming from? Where is that behavior coming from? There's some people that believe that behavior comes from, you know, like there's bad people and then there's good people. Have you heard that? You know, the good people and bad people, right? Well, I've worked a lot with the bad people, and they've acted like really good people. And then I know some really good people that have acted like really bad people. I actually myself done this, right? I don't know if you've ever done this, when you're acting in a certain way, you're like, where is that coming from? Ego? Yeah. So ego, people call that ego, right? So to simplify it, we're going to simplify it like we're going to distill it until we get like that little drop of wisdom, right? Where do we know all behavior comes from? It starts with a T, thought, or the thinking, right? You and I cannot have a behavior without having a thought. Is that true? Yes. So, what we tend to think is we tend to think that people's behaviors are people. That's why we have bad people and good people. Right? Or that's a problem team. It's a problem team because they're acting in a problematic way. But what we know is there's something happening internally, mentally, right? And the result is this behavior that is just funky at the moment. So in relationships, what I know is that when my partner is acting in a funky way, or if I'm acting in a funky way, you know, just kind of like out of sorts, I know something's happening here. It's helpful to know that people's behaviors are not the people. It kind of lightens things up a little bit. Right? So it may be true, you know, like your gut feeling is like, stay away, stay away, stay away. But the beautiful thing about what Ankush said is, you just stay away, right? There's no this oscillation between what you So, how does that relate to having fun in your relationship, knowing that all behavior really comes from your thinking? It points us to thought again, right? Yeah. Well, naturally, have you noticed that naturally, when you feel well, how do you act? Yeah, positive and kind, right? Now, when you were little, like a little tiny human, what was the state of mind that you were in most of the time? Yes, lighthearted, right? Lighthearted. Let's call it fun or lighthearted. Lightheartedness is your default setting. It's also the default setting of your partner and the team. So we're going to put that up, yeah? Was that okay? Sort of?
We know what you mean.
Okay. Is the default setting of all people. So you don't have to do anything. This is just sort of the factory. This is how you come out of the factory. And that's why things can change in a moment, right? It's like a self-correcting mechanism.
Just got to remember that.
Yes, it's nice to know that that's the truth, because otherwise you just make it too complex for you, for your partner. Not sure. So like, what? Does my partner really want to have just a light, nice, gentle relationship? Right? I used to work with somebody, and this person believed that her supervisor's day began with her having coffee and writing a list about how to make her life miserable.
Oh, I know that person. In the past.
In the past.
Yeah.
You the supervisor.
When I was a manager, I used to think, the staff came in to make my life hell. It was true.
Yes.
That was the truth. I had playing every day.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
Well, they wouldn't want to disappoint you, right?
well, there you go. Yes.
So teachers also believe that. And students also believe that about teachers. All right? You tell all your teacher? You're a teacher. And sometimes we believe that about our partners. He's doing that just to piss me off. I know it.
No,
Okay. So, you know, it's like sometimes we have these like funky ideas in our mind, right? It's like Will is leaving those shoes in the middle of the staircase again with the other 10 pair of shoes that are around it, right? I'm gonna be in trouble. And I believe he's doing that on purpose. He doesn't even see the other 9 pairs of shoes. Have you ever done that? You're doing something, you don't even see it, and it drives your partner crazy. And they think that you're doing that on purpose just to piss them off. Yeah, you're doing that just to piss me off. So if I really believe that, right, what would happen to my state of mind? Like if I really believe Will is doing something just to piss me off, am I going to really reap the benefits of my lightheartedness? I'm going to put my gloves on, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. And then I notice, like, oh, okay, I'm all caught up. I'm all caught up. Can I say something?
Do you notice straight away?
Yes. So one of the things that I think it's helpful to know is your feeling state communicates to you something about the quality of your thinking. Okay, does that make sense? So if I notice myself, I'm starting to get too serious, right? Or I start thinking, okay, this is very important, I have to talk to him right now about this, right? For me personally, what happens is when I have a lot of thinking in my mind, and a lot of like, I have to do this right now, like if I start feeling urgent, for me, that's a signal to step away. Step away from the man. Do not touch him.
Step away from the
Put the
thought.
knife down.
Put the knife down. So see, but this is good to know because generally, if you feel really urgent about something, what do you tend to do? I have to go for the jab, yeah. I have to talk to him about this right now, and I'm going to set him up straight because I know that he does that on purpose, and I'm going to show him that nobody's going to take advantage of me. Blah 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 blah. Right? See, so notice what are your habits, right, about your thinking. So what I was telling you is for me, it's urgent. I start feeling a lot of urgency, right? I kind of feel like hot in my stomach, like physically. Because what do I know? I know there's a lot of things happening. Yes. Right? And so I also know that not every moment of the day my partner is ready to have a conversation, right? So I also like look at, okay, how is he doing? If I want to talk to him about something that's maybe really delicate for me, you know, it's at a good time. Now, all of us are experts at this. When we were teenagers, we were experts, right? If we wanted to go out somewhere, we would look at our parents, see what mood they were in, right? And we would wait until they were in a better mood, because we had a better chance of saying yes. Right? We know how to do this.
Yeah, and you know, I want to give kind of another example of that, and I can use a personal one with Henk, who's sitting in the back of the room as well. So Henk and I work together, and we produce a podcast on relationships, and he helps me out and do various other things, and sometimes, you know, we have those moments where, you know, we might have a disagreement. And I know recently in the last few months there was something that, you know, we disagreed on, and Henk was getting quite upset, and I was, you know, like, well, why is he saying that? And thank you very much. And the great thing was that we both understood a little bit about what we're talking about, and so I just said to Henk, you know, why don't we just leave this and talk about this tomorrow? And we both saw, in that moment, we still thought we were both right, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But what we both saw is, let's just leave this alone right now, because right now we're not in the best place to have this conversation, like you're talking about with your parents. This is not going to turn out well. And so when we left it and we came back to it, we had a really, really fruitful conversation that simply couldn't have been had the day before.
Do we know what that was about?
Sure.
Who won? Who won?
No, so interestingly, like I felt I was right, and Ankush obviously felt that he was right, which is perfectly fine, right? Both of us had a point. But to have an argument about different points doesn't really work. It's not productive. So we waited and went back to it, and for me, I was like, okay, I know my point, and I'm right, but I'm so pissed off. I'm not really seeing where Ankush is coming from. And that told me, well, it's fine that you have your point, and there's obviously a solution here. But if you're not able to see his side of it, how are you going to find a solution to that? You'll just argue your point. That's it. Right? So you can always check with yourself, do I understand what the other person wants? If you're like, well, it's just hard, well, you might be wrong. Might be worth to check
But
out.
you both don't have to be wrong, and you both don't have to be right.
Exactly.
I mean, he has a right to an opinion. They can hear me, I think. And you have a right to your own opinion,
Exactly.
and you can agree to disagree, but it doesn't have to be a battle. I mean,
Well, in our situation, it was interesting because I had information that Hank didn't know, and Hank had a viewpoint that I hadn't considered. And actually, in us having a very open conversation, it wasn't just about one person backing down or let's agree to disagree. It wasn't even like that. It was something even more fruitful came out of it in terms of like, oh yeah, I'd never really considered that. Aha. So on and so on. And then me sharing as well that, oh, okay, this is where I was coming from. And Hank's like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. And actually, in the past, I know certainly for me, that if I'd had a business conversation like that, we would never have gone to that place. We would have just got caught up in disagreeing with each other, which is what we were doing the day before.
I think what happens in the heat of the moment, you don't really want to know what the other person is thinking, what he's trying to say. So you're so much wrapped up in your own thought. That's
Right.
what happens.
Yes. That's the beautiful thing, I think, about what Hank said, is that the first thing that happens when we get into an argument or a disagreement, or where we kind of are not walking in this lighthearted feeling, right, of relationship, is the first thing that goes is our listening to the other person. It's the first thing that goes. Now, we may be quiet, but in our head, we're like, okay, what can I say to prove this person wrong, right? And you start kind of like acquiring ammunition.
The advanced version of that is how can I make them look bad by making them look good? That's like the advanced version of it.
Yes, right. Now, what's amazing is that who's always right? We. Like each one of us, like, no, I'm right. I'm going to show him what he needs to learn. I'm going to school him right now, right? And what Hank said, I'm sorry.
Joe.
What Joe said.
Joe.
It's so nice, right? There's somebody like an opening in his heart. Say, wait, I don't even understand what he's talking about because I'm so much into my own point. Now really, when we're having a discussion or a disagreement, or when we are not in the lightheartedness of the moment, right, would it be helpful to listen? Would it be helpful to understand the other person's point of view?
But you're on a different platform though.
Yeah.
The problem.
Yeah, you
I
are.
am there, or, you know, you need to come down. And in doing that, so you're going to get all the aggro, all the energy down, so you're relaxed.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, like, as I have been upset, very upset before, and the very best thing that I can do, the very best, is say something like, you know what, I cannot listen to you right now. I'm just not capable of listening. Would you be willing to give me like 10 minutes? Can I just take like a pee break? Or I'll say I have to go pee, you know, just kind of to take a break, to give myself a little bit of space to what?
Calm down.
To go back to my default state. Now, when you're in a really beautiful feeling with your partner, what's your listening like?
Yeah, you tend to, your antennas up.
Your antennas up.
Yeah.
Could you say more about that?
Well, you tend to just really listen carefully, make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. You really want to understand.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. And you know, it's cute because as you're listening, right, I find Will fascinating. It's like, wow, he really thinks that, right? Not with judgment, but with like, wow. With what?
Like a knowing.
Can you tell if somebody's listening to you? How does that feel? Bless you. How does it feel when somebody really listens to you? Want to?
Attention.
Tension?
Attention.
Attention, yeah.
Makes you feel important.
You feel important. Now, would that be helpful to your relationship? So do you see these habits that we have? Like one of the things that, and it happens to me a lot is like as soon as I disagree, I stop listening and now I get into my own head. How can I prove him that I'm right? I'm not even listening to him. I'm just waiting for him to be quiet so I can tell him.
Well, what if you are right?
That's a great question.
I mean, it's, what if it was not a matter of an opinion, but was a matter of something like life, like, paying the car on a certain day, it's that day, and you say, no, it's that day, but you're right, and you find reasons,
Yes.
So
what I know is this, okay? What I know is that if I have a conversation in this platform, it's helpful. If I have a conversation in the platform that I'm not listening, I'm attacking him, he's attacking me, it doesn't seem to go so well.
yeah.
And sometimes, are you always ready to listen to your partner, or are there sometimes where you just don't want to hear it? Okay. Like there's sometimes if Will is watching football, right? And sometimes I just want to say something. I'll notice that I'll myself right in the middle of the TV and Will, honey, ready? I do that often. Thank God for DVD, right? But sometimes if I want to say something like really important that I think it's important, I'll ask his permission to begin a conversation. I really want to talk to you about this. Is this a good moment?
Not trying to tell you.
No. Right? And sometimes it's like, no, you know what, right now I can't do this. Let's talk about it later.
Depends on the game.
Right? So do you see? It's like I can talk about it and I can say, hey, whatever I want to
Both need to be in the default setting.
It's helpful. It's helpful. It's helpful when we both are in a default setting. I have found that the most connected we feel to each other, the more intimate of a conversation we can have. Like the more connected I feel to him, the more I'm willing to share what's the deepest in my heart. Go ahead.
The gentleman in the front said that, what if you're right? Right? And I used to be like that too. I had to prove people right all the time, and I got great pleasure out of it. And as I got older, I realized that I know I'm right, and they're going to find out eventually that I'm right. But right now, I'm not going to take him on and prove him that he's wrong. Eventually, he's going to find out, and I just leave it at that. And I try not to escalate it more. So that's another choice. That's all I'm saying. Is that's another choice. You can make a decision to just calm it down and just be done with it for the time being, because you're not going to get anywhere if you're both banging heads.
It's actually, I think it becomes more relevant if the person you're speaking to is someone in power, so it's your boss or your parent, and you're right, well, sort of, right. Yeah, and I don't mean right in the sense of an opinion, I mean right in the sense of something factual.
This is what happens with human beings, okay? When human beings feel safe, they're willing to listen to you better. And sometimes human beings don't feel safe.
Could you expand on safe?
Comfy, like in their own skin. So I'll tell you, for example, I used to have a supervisor, and at times she was explosive. And it freaked me out. I was like, why is she yelling?
Listening.
Yeah. And at one point, I had a conversation with her, and I was sort of like at the end of my rope. I was like, you know, I just don't understand this. And I was really lost. I was like, you know, do you want me to go in more training? Do you want me to get a different job? What's going on? What's happening? You know, because it really freaked me out. She said, I don't think I'm the right person for this job. I don't think that I can take this department to the next level that it needs to be taken. It shocked me. Because what I saw was a lot of yelling, you know, kind of like, ah, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I mean, you know, for whatever reason at that moment I felt safe enough to just tell her the truth in my heart. And she felt safe enough to tell me her truth. You know? But as human beings, when we get into argument, one of the first things we do is we go into our ego, right? I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to tell you blah, 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 blah.
It's almost like going back to the default again.
Yes.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, I forgot she was a human being, just like